You look lovely tonight, Maya.
Thank you, Caleb. It's nice to be here.
All Maya Bennett wanted was a normal Tinder date, but when she mistakenly sat down at the table of Caleb Whitmore, a cold and mysterious millionaire, she ended up walking into a game that should never have started. Instead of correcting the mistake, Caleb decides to observe her. What was supposed to last a few minutes turns into an electrifying conversation full of teasing, secrets, and an attraction impossible to ignore. When Maya's actual date finally shows up, it's already too late, because that simple mix-up awakened something dangerous.
Hi, I'm Rowan. A special shout-out to those of you watching Book 1 for free here on the My Stories platform, completely ad-free and uninterrupted.
Chapter 1. The Wrong Table in Manhattan. The rain started way too early, hammering against the apartment window as if it wanted to get inside before Maya Bennett could get out. She sat on the edge of the bed, still in her robe, staring at the dress hanging from the closet doorknob like it was a poorly worded demand. The fabric swayed slightly in a short little motion and seemed to breathe along with the sound of water on the glass. "I'm not going to," Maya said, with the calm of someone reviewing her own decision to bail. "I mentally cancelled 20 minutes ago. Now it's just the logistics." Olivia Hart was sitting on the floor, barefoot, holding 2 pairs of earrings like someone holding evidence in a courtroom. She pointed at the dress with her chin, raised an eyebrow, and clapped twice, in a rhythm that said, without needing words, that the argument had ended before it even began. The smell of her perfume, way too sweet for the hour, mixed with the rain seeping in through the crack in the window. "You're going," Olivia announced, standing up with the determination of someone who'd already won 3 arguments without bothering to start them. "So I paid for the mental cab. I bought the emotional ticket, and now you're going to put on that cheap silk thing and pretend to be a happy woman for one night." Maya kept staring at the ceiling, counting damp spots that didn't interest her. The lamp next to the bed cast a yellow light that made everything slower, thicker, harder to refuse. "Babe," Maya began, in that tone of someone about to read a definition out loud. "For anyone who hasn't been keeping up with the latest seasons of my life, it's an emotional subscription with a regret clause. It auto-renews, has hidden fees, and customer service is non-existent." Olivia stopped in the middle of the room, dress in hand. "Gorgeous. Send that line to the magazine that pays you late. Now get up." Maya got up, more to conserve energy than out of conviction. Olivia spun around her like an impatient seamstress, zipped up a zipper that was resisting on principle, adjusted the neckline, took 3 steps back, assessed, came back, fussed again. Maya let herself be handled because it was faster than negotiating. The fabric scraped lightly against her skin, cold in one spot, warm in another, as if it hadn't decided yet whether it wanted to be there either. "Earrings," Olivia ordered, holding out a pair. "These, not the others. The others are for a cousin's wedding. These are for a guy from the app who may or may not be a disaster. There are earrings for that specific category. There are earrings for everything, Maya. You're the one who refuses to learn basic taxonomy." Maya put the earrings on with fingers that trembled slightly, a tremor she chalked up to the cold and not to what she was recognizing in the mirror. The woman reflected there looked willing. Willing was a dangerous word, the kind that opened doors she hadn't decided yet if she wanted to open. "Deal," Olivia said, sitting on the bed with the solemnity of someone about to dictate a will. "If it's bad, and by bad I mean awful, catastrophic, or just boring, you call me, I'll call you back faking an emergency. I've already picked 3 options: gas leak, kitchen fire, or an imaginary parrot that escaped and is attacking the neighbors." Imaginary parrot? It's the best one. Nobody questions a parrot. People are afraid of admitting they don't understand parrots. Maya laughed, a short laugh that escaped before she could stop it. Olivia smiled like someone scoring a point. "Go, Maya. Not to marry Derek. To get out of here. To drink wine someone else paid for. To hear a human voice that isn't mine. I like your voice. Me too, but even Beyoncé leaves the studio." The rain thickened against the window, a steady hiss that seemed determined to talk her into staying. Maya grabbed her purse, checked her phone, checked it again, and stood frozen in the bedroom doorway with the feeling of being about to turn in an essay she knew was mediocre. Olivia came up behind her, fixed a strand of her hair, stepped back half a step, and made the face of someone about to cry with pride over something that hadn't even happened yet. "You look gorgeous," Olivia declared. "Gorgeous in a way that's going to scare Derek, and that's exactly the goal." "The goal was dinner. The goal is never dinner, Maya." "Learn?" Maya went down the stairs, feeling like she was obeying an order she'd given herself years earlier, in a moment when she still thought she deserved to be happy without regret clauses. The handrail was cold and slightly damp, and each step answered with its own creak, as if the whole building were following along with her indecision. Out on the street, the rain had turned into a thin, stubborn curtain, the kind that soaks you more than it looks like. The smell of drenched asphalt rose into her nose, mixed with the distant aroma of bread being baked somewhere she couldn't place. She raised her arm for a cab, and the cab drove right past. She raised it again. Another one passed. Maya took a deep breath and reminded herself that that was the exact opening line of the paragraph titled, "The night is going to be bad." The third cab stopped. Maya jumped in, blurted out the address of L'Avenue in one breath, and flipped open the little mirror on her phone. Her left earring had gone crooked. She tried to fix it, made it worse, gave up, with the philosophy of someone who decides showing up crooked is better than showing up later. The smell of fake pine hanging from the rearview mirror competed with her wet coat, and she gripped the strap of her purse just to have something solid between her fingers. Manhattan traffic in the rain had a personality of its own. Horns, blurry headlights, traffic lights blinking like they were annoyed at their own job. Maya looked out the window and thought about what she was going to say, what she wasn't going to say, what she'd do if Derek turned out to be the kind of man who asks about your ex over the appetizer. Mental rehearsals had never actually helped her in life, but she kept rehearsing, the way you keep putting butter on a scraped knee because your grandma told you to. The cab pulled up in front of L'Avenue with a sigh of wet brakes. Maya paid, thanked the driver, opened the door, and faced the sidewalk with the messy courage of someone who'd faced worse in less stable shoes. The restaurant's facade was discreet in an expensive way. Thin letters in dark metal, yellow light spilling out of a heavy wooden door. Two planters that looked like they'd been picked one by someone paid to pick planters. Inside, the air was different from the air outside. Warmer, more perfumed, intentionally quieter. It smelled like melted butter, rosemary and waxed wood, and there was a faint undertone of string music that seemed to exist solely so no one would have to comment on the weather. A man in a grey suit greeted Maya with a trained smile. "Good evening, miss. Reservation?" I think so. I think not. I'm meeting someone." "Derek." Maya realized the instant the word came out that she'd forgotten his last name. She searched on her phone, found it, blurted it out. "Derek Lambert." The man looked at the screen in front of him with a neutral expression, then raised his eyes, then looked again. He hesitated for half a second, the kind nobody notices except the person with a crooked earring and an off-rhythm heart. "Please follow me." "Table at the back on the right." Maya followed. She crossed the dining room, trying not to trip in her heels, trying not to look at the other couples, trying not to think that the heels were borrowed, and the dress was borrowed, and maybe the courage was too. The tables were arranged with the kind of spacing only expensive restaurants allowed themselves to respect. Low candles, thin glasses, a civilized murmur. The waiters moved like they knew the floor by heart, soundless, unhurried, navigating chairs with an almost choreographed grace. At the back, on the right, there was a man alone. Impeccable dark shirt, controlled posture, menu open between his hands with the calm of someone in no rush to order anything. His broad shoulders looked comfortable in any chair in the world, and there was something in the way he held the menu, without resting it on the table, without folding a single page, that suggested a man used to reading everything all the way through. Derek had said, in his last message, that he'd be wearing black. Maya took a deep breath, adjusted a smile she didn't even recognize on herself, and walked the last few steps like someone walking a narrow plank over an empty pool. The man looked up at the exact moment she reached the table. It wasn't an ordinary look. It was a look that lingered half a second longer than polite, that noticed the crooked earring without commenting, that saw the drop of water on her shoulder and chose not to mention it. Maya didn't consciously register any of this. She just noted, somewhere in her stomach, that look didn't belong to Derek. But she was already sitting down. The chair slid under her without creaking. The napkin was folded in a way that looked sculptural. The man closed the menu slowly, set it down beside his plate, and waited. He didn't greet her. He didn't say his name. He just set the menu down slowly and waited. His fingers settled onto the table in a way that was a little too calm, as though they had all the time in the world. Maya put her purse on the back of the chair, tucked her wet hair behind her ear, felt the weight of the crooked earring, decided to ignore it. She faced the man across from her, opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, smiled, felt like she was taking too long to speak, and that this was worse than speaking badly. So she spoke. Chapter 2. You look less dry in person. The line came out before Maya could think it through. You look less dry in person. The man across from her looked up from the menu slowly, as if the sentence had to cross the dining room before reaching him. There was no surprise on his face. There was a kind of pause, the kind a man used to controlling the temperature of a room makes when something off-script walks through the door. Maya swallowed hard. The earring was still crooked. She could feel the uneven weight against her neck, and her damp bangs were sticking to her forehead in a way that promised prolonged humiliation. Even so, she smiled. Smiling, she knew, was the last resort of a woman who'd just burned her first impression. The dark shirt fell over his shoulders like it had been cut for him, and only for him. I train hard to look emotionally hydrated on special occasions, he replied. His voice came low, with a streak of irony so subtle Maya almost missed it. Almost. She laughed loudly, the way she always laughed when something was supposed to be just funny, and for some reason turned into relief. The water glass in front of her trembled with the vibration, and she stretched out 2 fingers to steady it before the night could start with broken glass. Sorry, Maya murmured, still laughing. I swear I don't always laugh like this, only when I'm nervous, hungry, or about to make a mistake. He watched her in silence for a moment that lasted a little too long. It wasn't an appraising look. It was the look of someone making a decision internally and in no hurry to show the result. Then he made a minimal gesture toward the waiter, who appeared as though he'd been standing there the whole time. Bring wine. The white. He turned back to Maya. Kat, do you like white? I like whatever comes with bread, she answered, before thinking. The corner of his mouth went up a millimeter. It was the closest thing to a smile that face had produced so far, and Maya, who lived off noticing details in other people's writing, registered that millimeter like an important comma. The waiter disappeared. The table sank into a low, golden light, the kind that made anyone look better than they were. Maya pulled the wet coat off her shoulders, folded it as best she could over the back of the chair, and tried to recover her posture. So, she began, propping her elbows on the table before remembering she shouldn't, and pulling them back quickly. How are the cats? The question landed in the air with disproportionate weight. He blinked once, just once, and when he answered, his voice had taken on a new tone, as if he were making room to improvise an entire life right there. The cats. A pause. They're fine. I think one of them is judging me. Maya tilted her head. Just one? The other is more discreet. He judges in silence. She laughed again, this time without covering her mouth. There was something about the precision of the answer that got to her, a dry humor that matched the way he held his glass. Her shoulders dropped a millimeter against the back of her chair without her having told them to. Strange, Maya thought, stretching her fingers along the stem of her glass. Derek in his messages didn't have this silence between sentences. And you, he asked, tell me something nobody usually asks. Like what? Your biggest flaw. Maya almost answered by reflex. She looked at him first. The man on the other side of the table was actually waiting. Maya felt, without understanding why, that the answer mattered. Believing that men who say I'm intense aren't going to ruin my week, she said. His laugh came low, contained but whole. It was short. It lasted maybe 2 seconds, and even so, Maya had the exact impression of hearing something that face hadn't produced in a long time. His right hand rose to his chin, lingered there, came back down. I'll try to avoid the word intense. Then, he commented. "Please." The wine arrived. He accepted it with a nod, watched the waiter pour, waited for Maya to taste it before touching his own glass. Maya noticed the gesture. She also noticed that he didn't look at the waiter when he thanked him, and that even so there was a "thank you, Lo Yi," said the way old habits are said. "And you," she shot back, "your flaw." He actually thought about it, glass halfway to his mouth. Ayakam being slow to notice when something good walks into the room. Maya was quiet for a second. The line came without flourish, without the tone of someone trying to impress. It came as information. She drank wine so she wouldn't have to say anything, and discovered the wine was too good for the borrowed dress. The conversation went on at that rhythm. She asked silly things. He answered with a slightly disproportionate seriousness that ended in humor. At some point, Maya realized she was laughing again, with her shoulder relaxed against the back of the chair, her hands gesturing freely over the still empty plate. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculously good. She was about to comment on something on the menu when she saw Hug out of the corner of her eye. Movement at the entrance of the dining room. A man had stopped near the maître d'. Black shirt. His eyes sweeping the tables with the irritated rush of someone arriving late and blaming the world for it. Maya turned slightly to see better. The man fixed his eyes on her table, started walking over. Her heart beat once out of rhythm. Maya turned back to the man in front of her. She was going to joke, anything to fill the strangeness that had just walked through the door. But she saw in the same second that his hand had closed around his glass with a strength that didn't match the calm on his face. His knuckles were white, his gaze steady over her shoulder. "Are you waiting for someone?" he asked without changing his tone. "I'm with someone," Maya answered, confused. "I think." The other man reached the table. He stopped beside her with the posture of someone measuring an insult. "Maya!" The voice was dry the way the messages had promised. Maya felt the blood drop out of her eyes and into some place between her stomach and the floor. She looked at the man across from her, turned her eyes back to the one who had just said her name, turned again. "Maya Bennett," the newcomer repeated, with an irritation that no longer fit inside him, and the voice had the exact dry tone his messages had already promised. "I'm Derek." The silence was physical. Maya sat motionless for an absurd instant, then felt her face burn in a way she didn't know. The kind that starts in the ears and slides down to the chest in seconds. She slowly turned toward the man in the dark shirt. "You're not Derek," she murmured. He laid the napkin on the table, calmly. The same calm as before, now as heavy as stone. "I started to suspect when you mentioned my cats." Maya almost laughed. The laugh died in her throat before it could become sound. She looked at Derek again and realized, with an editor's clarity, that the whole dining room had started watching. "What the hell is this?" Derek said at the exact volume a resentful man uses when he wants an audience. "I had plans with you. I showed up. And you're sitting here laughing with someone else. Maya cleared her throat. "It was a mistake. I thought he was you." "You thought he was me?" Derek laughed, low with no humor. He looked at the man across from Maya, head to toe, slowly. "Sure," Derek said. "Makes total sense. You always do this." "Do what?" "Trip into men with money and pretend it was a mistake." Heat rose up Maya's neck like someone had turned on a hot faucet at the nape. She opened her mouth to answer, no idea what she was going to say, and felt, before she saw, the man across from her move. It wasn't an abrupt movement. It was the slowest thing in the night. He pushed his chair back, stood up fully, adjusted his shirt cuff with 2 fingers, and stayed still, for 1 second, looking down at Derek from a height Maya hadn't measured sitting down. The dining room went truly silent. "She got a table wrong," he said. His voice didn't rise. "You got rudeness wrong for personality?" Derek opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The maitre d', who had appeared 3 steps from the table without anyone calling him, leaned in toward Derek with a politeness that was pure threat. "Sir," the maitre d' murmured, "if you'll allow me, I'll walk you to the door." "I don't need to be walked out," Derek shot back. "You do, sir." The maitre d's hand didn't touch Derek. It didn't need to. Derek looked at Maya one last time, with a mix of contempt and half-cooked hatred, and turned. He crossed the dining room with steps too quick to look like dignity. The glass door of L'avenue tinkled lightly when he shoved it. Conversations resumed at a low volume, with that polite embarrassment people with money practice when they pretend not to have seen anything. Maya remained still in her chair, the crooked earring, her hands on the table. She felt that if she blinked, she'd cry, and crying right there would be worse than anything. "Daisadi," she began, unable to find the rest of the sentence. He stayed on his feet a second longer, looking toward the door Derek had gone through. Then he sat down slowly, adjusted the napkin in his lap, and looked at Maya with the same stillness from the start. "You need water," he commented, "or an escape. I can offer you both." Maya let out an involuntary laugh, short, a little hoarse. "The second one," she whispered. "You can go." He lifted 2 fingers, and the maitre d' appeared again. "Please go to cab for the lady." "I'll pay," Maya said, automatic, standing up with her wet purse pressed to her chest. "I know," he answered, without standing this time. "I called it anyway." Maya looked at him. She was going to thank him, she was going to ask his name, because now it was obvious she didn't know, and it was also obvious that not knowing hurt in a new way. But her face was on the verge of collapsing, and she knew she had exactly the length of a hallway to make it to the door before she cried. She turned, crossed the dining room with her head held as high as possible. She felt his eyes on her back, all the way to the door, without needing to check. Outside, the rain had let up. The cab was already pulling up to the curb. She got in, shut the door, gave the address in a thick voice, and only then let the air out. She didn't cry. She laughed. She laughed alone, low, with her hand over her mouth, the hysterical way of someone who laughs to avoid doing worse. The Manhattan lights ran down the window in colored blurs, and Maya, leaning against the wet seat, opened her phone with trembling fingers and called Olivia. "Liv," she said, before her friend could even speak. "Liv, you're not going to believe this." "Are you crying or laughing?" Olivia's voice came drowsy, alert. "Both. I sat at the wrong table." "You sat at the what?" "The wrong table. I sat down with a guy who wasn't Derek and had a conversation for 20 minutes. Liv, I asked about the cats." Olivia screamed so loud on the other end that the cab driver looked in the rearview mirror. Maya started really laughing now, with tears coming along with it, telling everything in scrambled pieces, and Olivia laughed with her, screamed, asked for details. "So wait, Olivia said. "What's his name?" Maya stopped, opened her mouth. "I don't know." "You what?" "I didn't ask." "Liv, I didn't ask his name." Olivia was about to say something when Maya's phone vibrated against her ear, cutting into the call. She pulled the phone away, saw the notification on the screen. Message from an unknown number. Maya held her breath. "Liv," she said quietly. "Hold on." She opened the message with a trembling thumb. The screen lit up in cold white inside the dark cab. "Is Caleb Whitmore. You forgot your coat." The name sat there in the dark, glowing. Chapter 3, the book that came with notes. The building's elevator groaned as always when it passed the 4th floor, and Maya Bennett, leaning against the stained mirrored wall, still had the metallic taste of nerves at the back of her mouth. Her hair, neatly brushed earlier by Olivia, now hung damp over her shoulder, giving off a faint smell of rain and expired perfume. The earring that had started the night crooked had disappeared somewhere between the cab and the curb. Maya didn't even care. She was so tired that tiredness had turned into a kind of dumb lightness, the kind that only shows up after a reasonably public humiliation. She opened the apartment door, still holding her phone. The message from the unknown number was still glowing on the screen, with his name spelled out in black letters that had no right to look so definitive. Caleb Whitmore. Maya repeated it mentally, like the last name was a tongue twister in a foreign language. She didn't know him. She shouldn't know him. She didn't want to know him, and yet she kept repeating it. She didn't want to look him up. Looking him up would mean admitting it mattered. I've seen alive. But that right there is another level. Olivia Hart was sitting on the couch in polka dot pajamas, with a bowl of popcorn in her lap and the expression of someone watching her favorite reality show. "Sit. Tell me everything." From the rain to the coat he's now holding hostage. Maya dropped her purse on the floor, kicked off her shoes without bending properly, and collapsed next to her friend. The couch sank with that familiar creak of old springs. I sat at the wrong table. I already know that part. Skip to the part where he decided not to correct you. Liv, he let me talk. 20 minutes. About cats he doesn't have. About the flaw in my love life. About his taste in bad action movies, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure he made up on the spot. Olivia laughed so loud popcorn jumped out of the bowl and rolled across the rug without either of them bothering to pick it up. And Derek showed up and called me an opportunist in front of half the dining room. Olivia's laugh stopped for half a second, just long enough for her jaw to harden. Then it started again, deeper, longer, the kind that ends in a dramatic gasp for air. Maya, Olivia wiped the corner of her eye with her pinky. This is, officially, the beginning of a story we are going to recall at a wedding. And mind you, I've known you a long time. It's not a love story. It's a collision. Every good story starts that way. Olivia tapped her friend's knee lightly. Show me the message. Maya turned the phone toward her. Olivia read it twice, made a sound at the back of her throat, raised an eyebrow, made another sound, longer. You forgot your coat. Translation, he kept your coat. Translation of the translation, he wants another round. Final translation, there's a courier coming tomorrow. Liv, trust me, I read a lot of bad romance in high school. I'm qualified. Maya laughed despite herself. The laugh came out hoarse, a little worn, and it was the first one of the night without nerves. For a moment, leaning against Olivia's shoulder, with the TV silently flashing some infomercial about frying pans, she almost believed all of it could become just a well-told joke at a future lunch. Almost, because the name was still there on the screen, and proper names carry weight when they come with a last name attached. She slept without really changing. She woke up in the morning with her hair stuck to her face, the light already filtering through the cheap cotton curtain, and the smell of coffee Olivia had brewed almost certainly burning. Maya, Olivia yelled from the kitchen, get up before I eat your bread. It was while Maya was brushing her teeth, with her mouth full of foam and her gaze dull in the mirror, that the doorbell rang. Olivia opened it. There was a murmur at the door, a half-sung thank you, and Olivia came into the kitchen carrying a rectangular package wrapped in brown paper, like an old birthday gift from an aunt. I told you, Olivia announced, triumphant. Courier, on time. I waved off the tip because satisfaction paid me already. Maya spit out the toothpaste, rinsed her mouth quickly, walked to the table. She opened the package carefully, pretending she wasn't in a hurry. The paper tore with the dry sound of something old. Inside, a hardcover copy of a novel she'd mentioned in passing at the table at L'Avenue, a story her mother used to read aloud on afternoons when the neighborhood light fell too yellow. Maya ran her finger along the spine like she was greeting an acquaintance. She opened to the first page. The smell of fresh glue and clean paper rose up to her. There was a note stuck inside. Since you talked about this book like it owed you something, it seemed fair to deliver the debt to you personally. Don't reread it all at once. It isn't healthy. Maya let out a sound that wasn't a laugh and wasn't a grumble. She flipped through. At the top of page 12, corner in the margin, in firm handwriting slightly slanted to the right. This paragraph is too long. The author needed an editor. Pity he died before meeting you. I'm going to sue this man, Maya muttered. Do it, do it. Olivia was peeking over her shoulder, chewing toast. Sue him slowly, preferably over many weeks. On page 47, another note. Here he describes a woman who walked into the room like someone walking in without permission. I know how that is. I sit across from it almost every night. Maya closed the book harder than she needed to. The heat that rose to her face had nothing to do with the coffee maker bubbling on the stove. Liv, I know. Liv, I can't. You can, you just don't want to. Same thing. Not even close. Maya got up from the table, walked to the window, came back. She paced in a circle, barefoot, feeling the cold floor under her feet. Sat down again. Olivia, in professional silence, kept eating her toast with the patience of someone who had seen this choreography before. I'm going to send it back, Maya finally decreed. With corrections, hallelujah. Not in the romantic sense, in the grammatical sense. Of course, Olivia raised her mug. To grammar. Maya sat at the kitchen table with her red editor's pen between her fingers and stared at the closed book for a length of time she didn't want to measure. It's work, she told herself, under her breath, and heard how fragile the sentence sounded in the empty kitchen. She opened the book to page 12. His handwriting weighted in the margin, slanted to the right like someone leaning in to listen better. Maya underlined the missing comma, professional gesture, steady hand, circled a stray pronoun, still professional. But when the pen lowered to reply, her hand hesitated above the paper, suspended, and she realized, with a small tightening in her chest, that she was choosing words the way you choose a dress. She wrote in tiny handwriting, subject-verb agreement, 3 infractions detected. The author may be dead. You don't have that license. She reread it. Her heart skipped a beat. This is courtship, she thought, and closed her eyes for a second. This is work, she insisted, opening them. But she couldn't convince anyone inside herself anymore. She went to page 47. She read his note again. I sit across from it almost every night, and felt her face heat in a way that had nothing to do with the lamp's yellow light. She touched the tip of her pen to the paper, erased before she wrote, thought, rewrote, erased again. The eraser already worn down at the corner, leaving a small grey smudge in the margin that looked, in itself, like a confession. Finally, she left only, wrong dining room then. She closed the book slowly, kept her hand on the cover for a while, without getting up, without moving, like someone closing a document that had shifted in nature midway through the paragraph. On Sunday, she had lunch with Olivia at a small cafe near the apartment, the kind that served bread and butter next to a coffee that cost 3 times what it should. The place smelled like cinnamon and waxed wood. Maya brought the book wrapped, resting on her lap as if it might run off. To Olivia, hair piled in a messy bun, tapped her foot under the table out of sheer impatience. When are you sending it? Today, maybe. Today, maybe. Today, Maya. I heard you. Olivia leaned forward. She got serious in a way she rarely was, a seriousness that came without warning, and that made Maya pay attention even when she didn't want to. Maya, listen. I know you're scared. I knew you before Derek, before the grad school guy, before that one from the cafe. I know what your face looks like when you're getting ready to run. Olivia took a breath. But I also know how to tell danger from new. This one's new, at least until proven otherwise. Maya looked at her mug, then at her friend, then at the window where the thin rain was starting up again, because New York chose that weekend to be dramatic. The drops slid down the glass in twisted threads, blurring the yellow cabs outside. And if I'm wrong, then you're wrong, and I'll make up an imaginary parrot and call you faking an emergency. Maya laughed. It was a short laugh, but a whole one. She sent the book through the same courier service. On the envelope she wrote only the initials, C.W., and the return address the courier from the day before had recorded on the receipt. She didn't write a sender. She knew he would know. The reply came faster than she expected, not in book form, in a message. Ms. Bennett registered all 3 infractions. I'll appeal the first. The other 2, I confess. The dining room was right. Pity it wasn't waiting for me. Maya read it 3 times, showed it to Olivia. Olivia read it once and raised her chin with the solemnity of someone delivering a verdict. He's in love. He is not. He is. Live. Maya. He's appealing the first. Appealing the first. Maya. And so, between notes and counter-notes, between jokes and small silences, between Olivia humming in the kitchen and Maya pretending she wasn't checking her phone every 3 minutes, the next few days passed. On Monday morning, another brown package arrived through the doorman. Maya unwrapped the package on the kitchen counter, her steaming mug still beside her, and discovered a used copy, with a worn cover, the smell of old paper rising from the pages. On the title page, in green pen this time, his slanted handwriting said, "You didn't mention this one. I'm betting. If I got it wrong, send it back with a curse word in the margin." Maya ran her thumb along the edge of the page, felt the warmth climb her neck, and went to grab her own green pen before even taking off her coat. She sat at the table, opened to page 20, wrote, underneath his note, "You got it right. I hate that you got it right." Reread it, crossed out hate, wrote note, crossed it out again. Left to hate. Closed the book with the care of someone closing a confession. Caleb sent soon after a line about commas that was almost a declaration and almost a taunt. Maya answered with a comment about defective verbs that was almost affection and almost a warning. More notes came, about a poorly chosen adjective on page 60. About a dialogue Maya swore had been rewritten by a man who had never actually heard a woman speak. Caleb appealed. Maya denied the appeal. It was almost routine before it became habit. Tuesday afternoon, the message that came was different. Dinner with me, tonight, same restaurant, this time no disguise, no wrong table, no conversation based on imaginary cats. 7:30. I'll send a car at 7. Maya read it, reread it, showed it to Olivia. Olivia read it, handed back the phone, and crossed her arms. Go. Live. Maya, go. But go in the blue dress, with the earring that's not crooked, and with your head on straight. I'll be on standby. If he pulls anything, I'll ignite a fire, a gas leak, and a runaway parrot all at once. You're a public hazard. I'm emotional insurance. Different. At 7 sharp, the building's doorman called up on the intercom with the most polite voice he'd ever used in his entire career. Maya was in the blue dress and with the earring in place, with her heart trying to run again, but this time for a different reason. Olivia, at the door, fixed her hair, squeezed her wrist, and whispered, "Remember, he appealed the first." Maya went down. On the curb, waiting, was a black car with dark windows, and a driver in a discreet suit who opened the door like it was the most ordinary gesture in the world. She got in, sat in the back seat, smoothed the dress over her knees. The leather had a clean, neutral smell, expensive in a quiet way. The car slid through the city without her having to think about the route. Manhattan went by outside the window in wet lights. Maya saw her own reflection in the glass, a woman she vaguely recognized, more whole, less crooked, still scared, but whole. The car stopped. She looked outside. The entrance of L'Avenue glowed in front of her, with the same discreet sign, the same dark awning, the same sidewalk where she had stumbled days earlier in high heels and borrowed courage. Only now she knew where she was walking into. She knew the name of the man who would see her. She knew that this time there was no wrong table. At least that was what she believed. The driver opened the door, and Maya, with her heart pounding in her throat for the same wrong reason and the same right reason as before, set one foot on the wet asphalt of Manhattan. Chapter 4, Mr. Whitmore. The sidewalk answered under her heel with that muffled click only wet pavement makes, and the dark awning of L'Avenue spilled, for a moment, a deeper shadow over her shoulders. Maya pushed the heavy wooden door, felt its resistance against her palm, the small hesitation of well-cared-for hinges, and the dining room's air came to greet her face before her eyes did, warm, perfumed, dense in a way the street air couldn't manage. The air inside L'Avenue felt different to Maya this second time. Maybe it was the light, lower than she remembered. Maybe it was the smell of warm butter coming from the invisible kitchen at the back. Maybe it was the dining room itself that this time leaned in to receive her, instead of just letting her walk in. The maitre d', the same one who days earlier had pointed to the wrong table with a distracted wave, was now standing by the entrance like he was waiting for a head of state. In the corner, there was low piano music that seemed to be playing only for her. Miss Bennet. He tilted his head slightly. "This way, please. Mr. Whitmore is already waiting for you." Mr. Whitmore. Maya noted the formality without understanding why it scratched at her ears. She crossed the dining room, and it was on that walk, with her heels stepping slowly on the dark floor and her eyes running over the neighboring tables, that Maya noticed the first strange detail. The tables were all empty. There wasn't a couple in any corner, no group of executives at the back, no family celebrating something loudly, just set tables, polished glasses, candles lit, as if waiting for customers who wouldn't come. The flames flickered alone, and the wax slowly ran down the silver candlesticks, marking the time of a wait that seemed rehearsed. "Are you closed today?" Maya asked in a low voice to the maitre d'. "Private reservation, miss." Private reservation. Maya swallowed a comma she had nowhere to place. Caleb Whitmore was standing next to a round table, against the exposed brick wall where a low lamp poured honey-colored light. Dark shirt, sleeves rolled to mid-forearm, no jacket this time. Maya noticed, with the clarity of someone who edited texts to survive, that the fabric of that shirt was simple only in appearance. There was something in the cut that lied to an inattentive eye. A drape you only got with old money or rare patience. He saw her coming, and the way he looked at her, without hurry, without drama, just with the calm intensity of someone confirming something intimate he had been waiting to confirm, made Maya pause half a step before reaching the table. "Good evening," Caleb said quietly. "Good evening." He pulled out the chair for her. Maya sat. The maitre d' appeared with wine. Maya hadn't seen a list. Maya hadn't ordered anything. The wine simply appeared, was poured into 2 glasses, and the maitre d' withdrew with the silent gesture of someone who had been briefed in advance on what to pour into each glass. "I hope," Caleb began, "you're hungry. I took the liberty of ordering ahead." "You took the liberty?" "I did. Do you always do that?" "Almost never." He tilted his head slightly. "But I wanted to talk to you without interruptions from a waiter." Maya picked up the wineglass. Didn't drink. Just held the stem between her fingers, sliding her thumb along the thin curve of the crystal. The dark liquid trembled slightly inside the glass, catching the lamplight in a red that seemed older than she was. Caleb. Maya. Why is the dining room empty? He held her gaze a moment longer than he should have. His right hand, resting on the white cloth napkin, picked up the tip of the fabric with 2 fingers and folded it, unhurried, into a small triangle. Maya saw the gesture, didn't comment. Yet, because I asked them to close it for the 2 of us, and they closed it. They did. Why? Because I asked. Maya set the glass down. The sound of the crystal against the tablecloth was almost inaudible, but the silence of the dining room amplified it. "Caleb." Maya narrowed her eyes slightly. "Why did they close just because you asked?" He took a breath. His hand let go of the napkin, smoothed the fold he had made, smoothed it again. The maitre d' appeared with 2 plates and disappeared with the discretion of a trained shadow. The smell of butter and fresh herbs rose up to her like a promise she hadn't asked for, and that she realized, was not going to accept. "Maya," Caleb said, holding her gaze, "the restaurant is mine." Her first reaction was to laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was that short, dry sound that escapes when information arrives before the brain can make room for it. "Mine how?" she asked, although she knew exactly how. "The chain L'Avenue is part of it. I'm the owner." "Of the chain. Of the chain. How many restaurants?" 12. Caleb spoke quietly, as if the word were heavy in his mouth. "In 3 cities." The number entered her body before it entered her head. Maya felt her stomach drop 1 floor, then another, like an elevator with a snapped cable, and the lamplight suddenly felt too bright for her eyes. 12. The word kept pulsing in her temple in a broken rhythm, multiplying into identical dining rooms, identical maitre d', identical regular tables scattered across cities she hadn't even gotten to visit as a tourist. Her fingertips tingled against the tablecloth. The dining room's air, which minutes earlier had been warm and perfumed, had thinned in a way she recognized from high altitude. Maya looked at the plate in front of her. The fish glistened under the lamp with an elegance that suddenly seemed mocking. She looked at the wine she hadn't chosen, at the table that had been reserved by an authority that wasn't hers, at the empty dining room that had emptied itself because a man had asked it to, at Caleb. "And that night," Maya began, keeping her voice controlled by a thread, "the first time, when I sat at your table, you were here because I eat here a lot. It was my regular table." "Your table?" "Yes. And the maitre d', that night, didn't realize I was sitting at the owner's table." Caleb paused. His hand returned to the napkin, took another corner, folded it again, The square he was making got smaller. Maya noticed that his knuckles were a little firmer than they looked at first glance. I told him not to interfere. Maya felt her stomach drop one floor. You told him not to interfere. When you walked in and said Derek's name, he checked with me by looking from the kitchen door. I hesitated. I ended up nodding yes, that he could seat you. When you mentioned the cats, I confirmed again. He understood that he was to let it run. So the whole dining room knew. The whole dining room knew there was a mix-up at the main table. Yes. And they just watched me. Maya. I was the show of the night. No. His voice hardened for the first time. You were not a show. I was an anecdote. Maya set down the silverware she still hadn't touched. The funny story of the rain-soaked woman who sat at the wrong table of the restaurant's owner and talked about imaginary cats. Tell me exactly which meetings you're going to tell this story at, Caleb, or already told. I bet it's a good one toward the bottom of the second whiskey. I haven't told anyone. I don't believe you. I haven't told anyone. He leaned forward, voice low, hard, controlled. Maya, listen. I know how this looks. It looks like what it is, Enkafno. It looks like a bored rich man who decided that the wrong woman at the wrong table was an acceptable show for a rainy night. Maya, I was the entertainment. You stayed there because it was funny. You let me ask about the cats. You let me talk about my floor. You let me laugh too loudly in your restaurant because it was a fun break in the middle of Mr. Whitmore's packed schedule. Caleb didn't answer right away. His hand stayed on the napkin. The square got tiny. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. Maya, look at me. She looked, and in that instant she saw, with the sharp clarity only anger can offer, how different that man was from her at every angle. The shirt, the dining room, the wine he'd had poured before she arrived, the maître d' who called her Ms. Bennett before she'd opened her mouth, the way the world rearranged itself around him without him having to ask. Even the lamplight seemed to obey the angle of his face, casting shadow where he wanted shadow. Maya stood up. Maya, please. No. At least let me take you home. I'll pay for my own cab. Her voice came out firm even though her throat scraped. I always have. She walked through the empty dining room without running. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of fleeing. She crossed the table set for clients he had sent away before they could arrive, past the maître d', who tilted his head slightly in silence, pushed open the door of L'Avenue, and stepped out into the Manhattan night. The cold air hit her face with the violence of a long answer. On the sidewalk, the black car was still there, waiting, with the driver in his discreet suit still under the awning. Maya walked right past. She felt cold water seep through the seam of her heel with every step, the heel twisting slightly in a crack in the asphalt, and even so, she didn't slow down. The driver started to open the door. She saw it out of the corner of her eye, registered it, chose not to see it. She walked to the corner, mentally counting street lamps. 1, 2, 3. Without allowing herself to look back even once, because looking back there would be handing over the only thing that was still hers that night. At the corner, she raised her hand for any yellow cab, got in, gave the address of the apartment. The driver didn't ask anything. Maya thanked that silence with her own silence. On the way, she didn't cry. She looked out the window, counted the traffic lights, saw ordinary people laughing inside lit-up bars, and remembered the line she'd let slip on that first night, believing that men who say I'm intense aren't going to ruin my week, and felt that this time she hadn't even needed to say the line, she had simply lived the sentence. In the apartment, Olivia was sitting on the couch with a magazine she clearly wasn't reading. She looked up when the door opened. Early, and she observed cautiously. Maya kicked off her shoes, sat on the couch. She didn't say anything for a long stretch of seconds. Olivia waited without moving, without filling the silence with anything that hadn't been asked for. He owns the restaurant. Olivia opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Maya. He owns it. The chain. 12 restaurants. In 3 cities. Oh. That night, when I sat at the wrong table, the maître d' knew. Caleb knew. Probably half the kitchen knew. Olivia set the magazine down. She moved closer, sat next to her, and took Maya's hand firmly. Her hand was warm, familiar, the way the hands of people who don't leave usually are. Maya, listen. Live. Listen. Olivia squeezed her fingers. I want to tell you something, and I want you to actually listen, even if you're mad. Okay? Maya breathed, nodded. I know he screwed up. Hiding that he was the owner wasn't a small thing. I'm not defending that. But I also know you, Maya. I know what fear does to your head, and fear, sometimes, distorts affection. Olivia spoke slowly, without letting go of her hand. I'm not telling you to trust him yet. I'm telling you to tell the difference between what he did and what you're afraid he did. Live. I know. Olivia hugged her. I know. Maya rested her forehead on her friend's shoulder. She didn't cry yet. The shame was bigger than the sadness, and shame doesn't cry. It scorches. She caught the familiar scent of Olivia's shampoo, cheap drugstore vanilla, and something inside her breathed a millimeter deeper. Later, in her room, alone, Maya took her phone off the nightstand. She had 2 new notifications. One was from Caleb. She didn't open it. The other was from Derek. Heard you've been seeing that guy again. People are already talking. I have screenshots. I have my side. I have people who'll listen. I can tell you in person. I'm intense, but honest. Maya read it expressionless, thought to herself that he kept confusing the two. She didn't reply. She blocked him, and realized, with a chill at the back of her neck, that blocking wasn't the same as silencing. She turned off the light, lay on her back, looked at the ceiling. On that long crack above the bed, the one she'd already sworn to fix 3 times, she silently counted to 50. Outside, an old pipe in the plumbing groaned twice, and she almost thanked the noise for filling her head. The next morning, Olivia walked into the bedroom with 2 mugs of coffee and sat at the foot of the bed without asking. Maya took a sip. Olivia waited. Maya took another. The coffee was too strong. The way Olivia always made it when she suspected her friend needed liquid courage. I'm not going to answer him yet. Okay, but I didn't block him. Not yet. Okay, I don't know what I feel. Okay, Maya, all this. Okay. Feeling what you feel is your job. I'm just here to bring you coffee. Maya looked at her friend, and for the first time in 24 hours, she smiled. A small smile. It was at the end of that morning, when Maya came back from the bakery with fresh bread under her arm, that the doorman stopped her in the lobby. Miss Bennett, this was left for you a little while ago. It was a white envelope. No sender. No name. Just her initials written in black ink, in firm handwriting slightly slanted to the right that she knew better than she wanted to. Maya went up without opening it, locked herself in her room, sat on the edge of the bed, broke the seal slowly, listening to the paper give under her nail as if the whole house had stopped to listen. Inside, there was no letter, there was no note, there were no written apologies, there was only a white cloth napkin from L'Avenue, folded into a tiny square so small it fit in the palm of her hand. Maya looked at it for a long time, then she closed her fingers around the square, and she still didn't know if she was going to open the door for him again. Chapter 5: The Night He Didn't Buy. In the Brooklyn apartment, afternoon was falling over Manhattan in a dirty orange, and Maya Bennett was in sweatpants rolled up at the ankles, sitting on the living room floor with a stack of proofs open on her knee, and 3 red pens hidden under cushions she had forgotten there herself. She hadn't actually edited anything in an hour. She just kept rereading the same sentence, marking it, unmarking it, marking it again, pretending the problem was the author's comma. Olivia was at the kitchen island, painting her nails with a concentration that pretended to be about the nails. The sweet smell of nail polish mixed with the ginger tea forgotten on the kettle, and the yellow light of the low lamp turned the room into a cocoon a little too warm for the tension hanging inside it. You haven't breathed since lunchtime, Olivia commented, without looking up. Are you editing or are you self-punishing? Is there a difference? Maya tried to laugh, and the laugh came out half done. The envelope was still on the coffee table, the tiny cloth square inside, folded into smaller and smaller sizes, like someone shrinking her own heart to fit into something. She hadn't opened it again since the morning before. She didn't need to. She knew its exact weight just by walking past it, and that in itself was already a quiet form of surrender. The doorbell rang. Maya looked up slowly, as if the sound had arrived in another language. Olivia stopped the brush in the air, dried the nail with a quick breath, and went to the intercom with the posture she usually reserved for delivery guys who had come to the wrong floor. "Who is it?" she asked, with a hard voice. The answer on the other end came too low for Maya to hear, but Olivia heard it, and stood still for a second longer than she should have. Then she set the intercom down, turned to her friend, and said, without preamble, "It's him." Maya's heart beat once very hard, and then seemed to forget how to keep going. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, and what came out was a half nod that Olivia interpreted on her own. Olivia opened the door before Caleb could ring again. She sized him up from head to toe with the calm of someone measuring fabric for a difficult seam. Dark coat, hair damp from light drizzle, shoes without a driver's polish, right hand gripping the coat 1 centimeter tighter than necessary. Olivia tilted her head slightly. "Porcelain millionaire," she murmured, as a greeting. "Come in. I'm going to pretend I need to buy milk somewhere very far away. Thank you," said Caleb quietly, and the nod that followed was small, almost shy. Olivia grabbed her keys from the sink, slid her sneakers on without tying them, threw a last look at Maya, a look that said, "I'm on my phone. Anything happens, I'll come running back," and left, closing the door carefully. Caleb stood at the entrance, without advancing. He didn't ask to sit. He didn't look for the couch. He waited. Maya got up from the floor as if every joint had decided to complain at the same time. She set the proofs on the coffee table, near the envelope, and crossed her arms, without realizing she was crossing them. She walked over to the door, put her hand on the handle like she was going to shut it in his face, and stopped. She stayed there, with her back to him, breathing twice as slow as she needed to. "You have 30 seconds, she said, without turning, "and I can use all of them to throw you out." "I know," he answered, quietly. She turned slowly. She still didn't let go of the handle. "You didn't bring a flower," she said, with the irony that was the only thing keeping her spine upright. "I thought that would be the easy part." "I didn't come to buy anything from you," he answered, quietly. "I came to talk." Her breath hitched. Maya walked over to the window, pretending she wanted air, and what she wanted was distance. She looked out at the dark street, the thin drizzle falling slanted under the streetlight, her own reflection in the glass, with the earring this time in place. "Then talk." Caleb took 3 steps into the room, stopped in the middle of the rug, as if the rug were a line he respected. He took his hands out of his pockets. "I stole 20 minutes, he confessed. "'Tis when you sat at my table. I knew within the first minute. I should have corrected it, I didn't. For those 20 minutes, I took something that wasn't mine. That was my mistake, and it was a lie by omission, and I'm not going to try to turn it into a joke now to make it lighter." Maya kept her eyes on the glass. Her throat tightened in a way she had known for far too long. "But everything after the first laugh," he continued, "was a choice, mine and yours. I didn't stay at the table because I was bored. I stayed because someone looked at me without calculating. That hasn't happened to me in years. I didn't know how to react like an adult. I reacted like a man hungry for something he didn't know he still wanted." She closed her eyes. The sentence came in whole, without permission. "You own the restaurant," Maya murmured, still at the glass. "You own everything. I'm the wet woman who got the table wrong. How does this stand on its own feet outside of that night?" "I don't know," he admitted, and his voice dropped another tone. "But I didn't come to say I know. I came to say my mistake doesn't get fixed with a gift. I didn't bring you an expensive book. I didn't bring you jewelry. I didn't bring you a dinner with my name in gold letters. I came without a driver because I wanted you to see me climbing the stairs of your building like anyone else." Maya turned slowly, faced him for the first time since he had walked in. Caleb had the same posture of a man who ran rooms, but his shoulders had dropped a centimeter, and his left hand was gripping his right sleeve in a small twist, the kind no one trains for. "You folded a napkin today," she said, without asking, without irony. He looked at his own hand, noticed, and let the sleeve go, slowly, almost with shame. "Several," he answered. Maya's mouth trembled in something that wasn't a laugh, but was related to one. She took 2 steps toward him. Not 3, 2. The air between them got shorter, and she felt, in her chest, the old temptation to pretend that didn't move her. "Do you send someone to fix my life for me? Send someone to shut Derek up for me? Send someone to protect me for me?" "No," Caleb answered, and his voice came firm. "I found out what Derek's been saying around, I'm sending someone to put a stop to it. That's legal, not love. It's already being done because of a call I made on the way here. But I didn't come here to tell you I solved anything for you. I came to ask you if you want to keep going. No prize, no discount, no priority line." His phone vibrated in his pocket. Maya saw the minimal movement in his eyes, saw the silent decision, and saw his hand sink into the pocket until the vibration stopped at once. "That was him," Caleb said. "Last time the subject walks into your home, not through me." Maya didn't answer right away. She walked over to the coffee table, picked up the envelope, opened it, turned the little cloth square over in her palm. The fabric had that faint cellar smell she already knew, mixed with something clean, almost old hotel soap. She looked at him. "You folded this one too." "I folded that one long before I could come find you," Caleb explained. "I sent it without signing it because I didn't have anything yet that I could sign." She closed her hand around the cloth. She felt something give inside her chest, soundlessly. It wasn't freshly paid trust. It was the permission to maybe start paying again, minimum installment, no hidden interest. "I'll grab a coat," Maya said, and her voice came out whole, her own, not to go somewhere expensive, to go out with you. Caleb nodded just once. In the hallway of the old building, they went down the stairs side by side, and she noticed that he shortened his step to her rhythm without making a ceremony of it. The damp smell of the building, a mix of old wood and new paint on the railing, seemed more bearable with that shoulder close to hers. At the curb, the car was where any car would be. No special plates, no driver standing at the door. Caleb opened the door for her and walked around to the driver's side. "Saw you drive? When it's mine," he shot back. Maya almost laughed. It was the most Caleb sentence she had heard yet. The drive to the penthouse was short. Manhattan glistened, drenched in the drizzle. She leaned her temple against the window and felt the cold glass hold the dizziness for her. Caleb didn't fill the silence with music or with a question. He just drove, his right hand resting on the gear shift, not reaching for hers. It was a silence that fit, and that in itself was new. The headlights of the cars behind them spread into trembling stars across the wet windshield. In the elevator of his building, the low lights painted them both amber. Maya stood beside him, shoulder to shoulder, and felt that the air between their bodies had weight. His hand was next to hers, close, not touching. She could have given a centimeter. She didn't. He didn't either. The elevator rose, and her breathing got short, and he kept looking forward, and she knew, right there, that this decision not to touch was the closest thing to a touch he had managed to give. The elevator stopped. The doors opened to the short hallway of the penthouse. Caleb let her step out first. Maya walked into the apartment she barely knew, with feet that were suddenly her own again. Caleb rested his hand lightly on her lower back, not to push, just to point, and she followed the short hallway to the door cracked open at the end, letting his gesture draw the map. She stopped in front of the door. Caleb stopped behind her, one respectful step back. She turned around. His eyes were darker than they used to be in the cold light of the restaurant. His hand rose slowly, not to her face, but to the doorframe beside her head, like someone leaning so as not to fall. She reached first for the collar of his coat with 2 fingers and pulled just a millimeter. The kiss came without theatrics, without rush. It was the kiss of a man asking permission with his whole mouth. Maya closed her eyes, felt the Manhattan drizzle still in his hair, felt his hand finally reach the nape of her neck, felt that her heart, this time, wasn't running away. It was arriving. She pushed the door open behind her. The door closed. It was then that his phone, forgotten on the side table in the living room, vibrated. Caleb didn't hear it. He was facing the balcony, pouring more coffee. Maya heard it. She looked toward the sound automatically and saw only the light blinking in the distance on the dark wood. She took a step toward the side table before realizing she had taken it. She stopped. His white shirt fell long down her thighs, and the cold floor held her toes the way you hold a decision. She could cross the room in 3 strides. She could turn the screen over. She could read the name. She took a deep breath, pressed his shirt against her body, went back to the balcony without looking back. She didn't see the screen. She didn't read the name. She didn't know yet.
Hey, Rowan here. That's it for book 1, but guess what? Book 2 is already done. You can grab access to it for just a small fee.
Maya finally thinks she has found peace in Caleb Whitmore's arms, until the night an anonymous message turned love into suspicion. 6 months later, Caleb and Olivia, her best friend, started hiding conversations, trading quick glances, and disappearing behind quiet excuses. Maya tried to believe that not every happiness ends in humiliation, that the man who held her every night, who kissed her so calmly, and the friend she considered family wouldn't be capable of destroying everything. No, they wouldn't do that. Not to her. She thought she was going crazy and smiled. Then came the photos. Caleb holding Olivia, Caleb hugging Olivia, Caleb kissing her forehead with an intimacy Maya had never seen in him, not even with her. Maya left convinced she had lost the man she loved and the friend she considered family, with her heart in razor-sharp pieces of fresh wounds. But when she found out the truth, it was more than a betrayal. It was more than an affair. It was something far worse. Something involving secrets buried for years, lies that Caleb and Olivia had kept together, and a truth so devastating that Maya wished for a second she had never opened that envelope. And the worst part? The truth didn't set her free. It chained her even more, and she no longer knew how much longer she could stand being with Caleb until that night. That blessed night.
Like I said, that was just a taste of book 2. To watch it uncensored, just click on the first link here in the pinned comment. I'll see you on the other side in a few seconds. Remember, just click on the first link down here in the comments, and book 2 complete, no ads, no interruptions, will already be available for you. It's very simple. Book 2 is something I'm loving making. You're loving it too, so I promise there will be more. It's where you find increasingly spicy stories, a true dark romance. And precisely because this version is getting more and more heated, the video isn't well accepted publicly on YouTube. This closed environment is where I can actually share my essence and where I feel free to do my best work for you. More news coming soon. I'll be waiting for you on the other side. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people have been downloading our audio, effectively copying the entire story, and just re-uploading it to YouTube. If you want to watch the original story and be the first to get the next ones, search for My Stories by Rowan on YouTube for the best billionaire and CEO romance content. Remember, the official channel is My Stories by Rowan on YouTube and the My Stories platform. I'll be waiting for you there. Love, Rowan. Congratulations! Your purchase has been confirmed, and you now have full access to books 1 and 2 of all our stories, completely ad-free and uninterrupted. Everything is available on the My Stories platform, from mafia romance and billionaire romance to our spicier tales. This content is ready for you now, with new episodes added daily. Access is simple. Just log in using the same email address you used for your purchase. A confirmation has also been sent to that same email. The My Stories platform is very simple and intuitive. Each image represents a story. If it has a book 2, just click and press play. Everything is already unlocked for you. You can also rate each story, leave a like, and write a comment. Your feedback will be visible to all our other subscribers. This is our romance universe, so please feel free to interact. From this moment on, this is officially your home for romance stories. Just head over to mystoriesromance.com and press play. Welcome to the family.